Chapter 17. Blaine. Blaine couldn't keep his gaze from traveling up to the boxed seats as he threw the ball to Mason. Kenzi was up there with Shelby, though he couldn't see her face, and it was the first time he'd had a woman in there cheering for him. "What's the distraction, man?" Mason called out as he tossed the ball back. "That's the second pass you've thrown over my head." Blaine pulled his attention from the glass windows just in time to catch the ball. "I'm sorry, Mason." "It's a girl, isn't it?" Blaine glanced quickly over at Tucker, who was running sprints. "Did Tucker tell you?" Mason laughed and caught the next pass easily. "He didn't have to. You've been happier than normal, and your gaze keeps traveling up to the box. I know what having a woman does to you." His jaw tightened as he said the last words, and Blaine could tell some woman had done a number on Mason in the past. Was that what his behavior at Christmas had been all about? He'd have to remind himself to check in with Mason later, when the first game of the season wasn't looming over their heads. "You're right, it's a woman. I've never invited one before, and I just keep wondering what she's thinking." He caught the ball, spun it in his fingers, and sent it sailing back. "She's probably taking in the sights and enjoying the free food and being hounded by the other women," Mason said with a smile. "But if you keep getting distracted, then she's going to be worrying about you and your health when you keep getting sacked, so get your head in the game." Blaine knew Mason was right. He spared one more glance at the box and then focused his attention on the warm-up. It was less than an hour to kick off, and he needed to be prepared. Kenzi. Kenzi was glad Shelby was with her as they entered the box. It wasn't her first time. She'd come to their Christmas game with Shelby last year. But it was her first time being here as Blaine's girlfriend. She wondered if the other women knew, if they would welcome her like they had Shelby. "Don't worry," Shelby whispered in her ear as they made their way to the front chairs. "You've got this. Miss Southlake, remember?" Kenzi managed a tight smile. Yes, she could put up a fake facade with the best of them. Smile, wave, and pretend to be happy. But she wanted to be genuine with these women. If things worked out with Blaine, she'd be spending more time with them, and she wanted them to know the real her, even if it meant sharing her faults. "Shelby, so good to see you again." Kenzi turned to the woman with the velvety voice and froze. It was Margaret, the owner's wife. She was a frightening woman. Not only did she ooze money on the outside, but she had a nasty habit of talking about the other women behind their backs. Kenzi had only heard a few of her comments at the Christmas game, but it was enough to let her know she wanted to avoid this woman as much as possible. "Hello, Margaret. So good to see you again." Shelby's voice sounded just as bright as always, but Kenzi could see the stiffness in her posture. Evidently, Shelby felt the same way toward Margaret as Kenzi did. Margaret's icy blue eyes turned to Kenzi. "And who is your friend? I'm not sure we've met." The woman's gaze traveled up and down Kenzi, making her feel as if she were an item at an auction. "This is Kenzi, my best friend and Blaine's girlfriend." Margaret's eyes widened. "Girlfriend? I wasn't aware he had one." Kenzi felt as if Margaret was examining her under a microscope. "I don't know if I'd say girlfriend, but he did invite me." That was the wrong thing to say. Margaret's brow arched almost to her hairline. "So you're not his girlfriend? Are you the flavor of the month, then?" The woman's harsh words and disdainful tone transported Kenzi back to middle school. Embarrassment clawed at her face, and she stuttered as she tried to remedy her words. "I mean, I don't know what we are yet. We've been on a few dates, but we haven't labeled our relationship yet." "I see. Well, we'll see how long you last." With that, the woman spun away from them and toward her next victim. Kenzi sank down into the nearest chair and sighed. "That was awful." "She's awful," Shelby said, sitting beside her and placing a hand on her arm. "Don't worry about her. Blaine wouldn't have asked you here if he didn't want you here. Plus, he did come to church. I think things are going well for you guys." Kenzi took a deep, shaky breath. "Yeah, you're right. I'm trying to work on not caring what people think, but it's hard, especially with a woman like her. She'd chanced a glance over her shoulder, but Margaret was engaged in a conversation with another woman. Maybe the game will take your mind off it, Shelby said softly. The game. Right. Kenzi turned her attention back to the field and tried to enjoy the game.